You're muted. Hello, hello. Good to see you.
Hi, Gitte.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, wait. I think I have audio issues. Let me just sort myself out quickly.
Okay.
Can you say something?
I can say something. I can say a lot.
Perfect. I think now I can hear you
Ah, that's
clearly.
great.
Um, Perfect. Hi, Gitte.
Hi.
Long time no see.
Yes, it is.
I think the number of participants don't match the number that I invited, but then that's fine. I think we can carry on because we scheduled it to start now.
Yeah.
Um, so to everyone, this is Gitte. I'm gonna allow her to introduce herself. And Gitte, these are our students. I think we're missing about 60 or 59 of them, but I
Okay.
think they are coming in one at a time.
Yeah.
So they just started their program now in February, and they are stepping into the unknown, as per the title of the talk today. So yeah, we were asking that you maybe give us some tools to help us navigate. Um, some are still downloading Zoom. So can you tell the ones who are downloading Zoom to use it on their browser? There's an option for that. They don't have to necessarily download Zoom.
Yeah.
They can just use it on the browser. Yeah. Okay. I think, I don't know, maybe should we maybe just do introductions for the next 2 minutes while we wait for
Yeah.
the numbers to improve? Is
Do you
that
want to
fine by you?
record it?
Yes, I'm actually streaming to YouTube at the moment as we
Ah,
speak.
okay.
So it
Cool.
will be saved on
I'll
YouTube.
be famous. Woo.
Okay. Or let me rather also give out the link to the YouTube uh, broadcast so that whoever struggling to join can just join us on YouTube.
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
great idea. Uh, okay, we're slowly getting ready. We're just
um,
putting some links out so that people can follow on YouTube as well.
okay.
Okay.
I think the numbers are improving. I think we can then maybe get started. Some of them will meet us along the way. Whatever parts of the presentation that they might have missed, they can get it on YouTube.
Yeah, and I'll also send the slides to you afterwards. Okay,
Thank you so much, Ira.
then I'll just
Over
start.
to you.
Yes. So, hello everyone. My name is Gitte. I am a Danish person living in Stockholm, Sweden. I have been working as an agile coach slash leadership coach slash a little bit of anything that makes a team and an organization function for the last 15 years. I started out studying computer science, and then I went into testing. And then I realized that processes help us building quality. And then I realized it's not really about processes, it's about people. So some of the things that I do is I work with collaboration, I work with communication. One of my main topics is psychological safety, where I was lucky enough to even be asked to write a chapter in a book about that. I speak at conferences, and I have been speaking at conferences since 2013, where I talked about having the courage to speak at a conference. So one of the things I'm known for is my courage, but also I'm known for seeing people and embracing people, sometimes physically. I'm active in the community. I'm active on Blue Sky. I used to be on Twitter, but no more. And for instance, one of the things I do is I organize coach camps. My name is on Twitter, not on Twitter, but everywhere else, is Native Wired. Uh, it is a company name that I acquired in 2011, but it has also become me, so to say. It's me on any kind of place you see Native Wired, it will be me. And my pronouns is she and her. So you go like, oh, so what is a woman from the Nordic countries doing talking in South Africa? Well, first of all, I was asked by one of my friends, Gitte Hill, if I could help out last year because um, and the students from last year would like to hear about the imposter syndrome. So last year here in March, I spoke about the imposter syndrome, which I will also talk a little bit about today. But I do also have other connections to South Africa. I was invited to speak at SUXA, which is Scrum Gathering User Group South Africa, in Cape Town in 2014. I was invited back in 2016 to do a keynote. And I have a bunch of friends there. I love being there. There's so much amazing food. I must say, I've only been to Cape Town. I assume there's also amazing food in the rest of South Africa. Um, these pictures are from when I went there in 2016. So the one to the upper left is when I went to see penguins in the wild at Boulder. If you haven't been there, I totally recommend it. There's something super interesting about seeing penguins in the wild. And the other one is from the Color Run in Cape Town in 2016. This is actually even before starting the Color Run. That is also super interesting. You'll be like, they'll spread colors all over you and you have a lot of fun and the money goes to something good. So that's kind of my connection to South Africa. Um, a while ago, not that long ago, Jay contacted me again and said, would you be interested in doing talks for us again? And we are actually talking about if I should be connected to We Think Code on a regular basis so that I can come in and talk about different things. When I talked to Jay, we were talking about what should I talk about this year? And we talked about you people, that you had just started up. And I know the whole concept of We Think Code. And we were like, okay, maybe I should talk about stepping into the unknown because that's very much what something like this can be. When you come from something and you step into something very different and you don't really know what it is. I know that from myself. When I was younger, I was terrified. Like every time I had to do something new, I would be terrified. Now I'm kind of like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. Mostly. Every time I try something new when I speak, like the first time I had to speak at a conference with a microphone or just holding it, or the first time I had to like wear a headset, which by the way is not as easy as it seems because you have a box and a lot of women's clothes do not have pockets. So I was like, okay, they taped it to my back. The first time I gave a guest lecture at the university, things like that still terrifies me. Um, and yet, one of the things I like to do is to challenge myself because I find that I get so much out of trying new things. So I was sitting thinking, okay, stepping into the unknown. So what should I talk about? And the more I looked at it, the more I realized I want to talk about all the things. You go like, nah, is that a good idea? Yes, all the things. Well, not all the things, but at least some of the things that I will talk on a regular basis. So I will talk about psychological safety because that is super important when we are learning. And actually, the original research is from two psychiatrists who are looking into the best way of learning. I will talk about imposter syndrome a little bit, which is about being fake or feeling you're fake. I will talk about courage and being kind. I will talk about comfort zone. And yes, I will bring in a few children's books as well. That also means that because I'm talking about all the things, you will kind of just get a taste of it. Um, there are videos with me online about almost all these things. And after I do my talk, you will have opportunity to ask me questions. If you don't feel comfortable asking questions here, my email is also in the slides, and you are more than welcome to write to me. So let's get started. So I have been working with psychological safety almost as long as I have lived. It wasn't until 2017 that I realized that a lot of what I do is actually called psychological safety. Because what I do is I help people feel calm. I help people feel like it is okay to try things and it is okay to fail. So the first mentioning I have found of psychological safety is from 1965, where Edgar Schein and Warren Bennis were looking into how do we create the best working environment. Or sorry, I'm just going to rewind. How do we create the best learning environment? And what they found out was that if you could create a place with discomfort, but still safe, there would be an increased desire to learn. Whereas if it was unsafe, you would feel anxious because you would both be discomfortable, but you would also have the feeling that this is not a safe place to be, this is not a safe place to fail. So that leads to anxiety. So the whole psychological safety actually started around creating a really good learning environment. I like to use this definition because it says so much of what psychological safety is. It is about being able to show and employ oneself without fear of negative consequence of self-image, status, or career. There are several things in this. One is that it is about fear. So it's not about do we have a safe situation? So when you talk about physical safety, you can talk about do we have a safe situation? Are we wearing a hard hat if we go to a building site? When it comes to psychological safety, it's much harder because we are all individuals and we all have a very different background. So whether we feel safe or not can depend on our background as well. It is also about being able to show yourself. Some people talk about you should always be all of yourself. I don't think that is true. I think it is up to each person to choose. But what psychological safety gives us is it gives us the opportunity to be who we are if we want to. So you probably noticed that my hair is not the usual color of white people. Um, Trust me, my family have noticed. One of the things that make me feel like me is my hair, my purple hair. It makes me feel fun. It makes me feel relaxed. It makes me feel like a geek. Um, and being able to that is because I feel safe. So other things here is about the negative consequences. So that's very much what psychological safety is about. It's being afraid of some sort of negative consequence, some sort of almost punishment that the way we look at ourselves, the way our status is in a group, or maybe even if we lose our career. So Khan was doing research about engagement and disengagement in the 90s. And in the 2000s, Amy Edmondson started looking into psychological safety as well. She actually started looking at a whole different area. She looked at working environments and found out that this hospital she was looking into had more errors in the departments that looked like they had a good working environment than they did in the one that had a bad working environment. And she couldn't make this fit because her theory was the better you feel, the fewer mistakes you make. So she had a research assistant go in and repeat the research. And what they found out was that the departments that had a safe working environment, a good working environment, were not afraid to admit when they made errors. And by admitting that you make errors, you can start learning from them. So that's when she started looking more into like narrowing in on psychological safety. So again, she calls it belief, that you will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. So that's a little bit of a different angle in it, that she talks about belief instead of fear. But I like that she talks about the punishment, but also the humiliation. Because one of the things we are afraid of as humans is to be humiliated. We don't like um, being called out for not knowing things, for instance. So one of the big fears that a lot of people have is speaking in public because you are so afraid to be humiliated. When we talk about safety, some people think safety means being comfortable. It is actually a little bit the other way around. Safety is about being able to be uncomfortable. So the quote I had about learning was talking about being uncomfortable and feeling safe. And that is because to really learn, to really grow, we need to be a little bit uncomfortable. We can learn things a little bit when we are comfortable, but to really move, we need to be uncomfortable. So if you look at our comfort zone, that is where everything is just nice. We know how to do everything. We've done this before. We can just relax. This is a super good place to be. And I encourage you as you are going on this journey of learning, remember to go back there once in a while. When you have spent like a week with something that is super difficult, you learned a lot, take a breath, go back to where you know everything. Because if we don't, it can be super stressful. So remember to take care of yourself in all this. But our brain loves being in the comfort zone. Basically, our brain is super lazy and super stupid. It likes to use the least amount of energy possible, and we will do that if we know everything. So that means we need to challenge our brain. We need to push it a little bit into the learning zone. Some call it the growth zone as well, because that's where we start learning new stuff. That's where we start poking our brain a little bit to learn new things. The thing to watch out for is that you don't push yourself out in the danger zone. So that would be like, say you're afraid of speaking, and tomorrow you have to speak in front of 5,000 people, and it's the first time you do it. That is enough to give a panic attack. But also staying in the learning zone and the growth zone for a long time can push you out. So allow yourself to go into that learning zone. And then remember to take care of yourself and rest a little bit in the comfort zone. So I drew this as a circle. I know this is not this is sort of circles. This is my very good skills in drawing. But the thing is, comfort zone doesn't always look like that. We have days where our comfort is like this. We didn't sleep well, we had an argument, stuff happens. And there are just days where we only feel comfortable, like really here, and we only feel learning really here. And if you have days like that, it is important to take a step back and saying, hey, okay, do I need to take a little bit better care of myself? So the blob at the bottom is to illustrate that safety is also, and comfort is depending on context. Who are we with? What is the power distance? So power distance it can be like a manager, for instance, but sometimes it can even be a trainer or a teacher. One of the things I see when I go out and do talks or trainings is that all of a sudden I'm the expert. So some people find it hard to ask questions. So that's one of the things I work with when I do trainings is helping people to be comfortable enough to ask questions, or at least feel safe enough to raise their hand and ask that question. So the important things about psychological safety is that it is a feeling. And because it's a feeling, it's also very individual, so we can help each other by talking about what it takes. It's not the same as comfort, but it is very much about learning. And as we grow and move, and as you move into the workplace, psychological safety is also about how to enable innovation. With the world we are living in, when everything is changing, the industry you are moving into, innovation is super important. And feeling safe and a little bit uncomfortable helps enhance motivations. Sorry, innovation. And one of the reasons is that we can make mistakes. We are not afraid to make mistakes because we know we are not going to be punished for it. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to take a risk. Those are part of learning. And by doing that, we can enable and enhance innovation. Topic one is over. The big tour of Gitte's normal talks. What I talked about last year was the imposter syndrome. And the imposter syndrome is something I discovered. Okay, I don't like when you think about how long it is ago, 10 years ago. And basically, this is the imposter syndrome. You have this feeling that everyone is better than you. I am not as good as people think I am, and somebody's going to find out. The interesting part about the imposter syndrome, one of the interesting part is it happens to smart people. Smart people who work hard and then they realize that I feel like a fake. And the first time I heard about this, I was like, oh, I'm not the only one in the world. And as I started talking about it and talking with my friends and at conferences, I realized that there are so many people who suffer from the imposter syndrome at some point in their life. They feel like a fraud. One of my friends, who is like one of the most intelligent women I have ever met, her PhD guide told her that even though he'd been at the university for 50 years as a professor, he was like, one day somebody's going to come tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, it was a mistake that we hired you. You are not good enough. So imposter syndrome is not about being good enough. In fact, it is about feeling this way despite being good enough. So for me, for instance, I talk about it because I have it a lot of time. I will be like, okay, I'm standing on a stage talking in front of all these people. They expect me to be a professional speaker, but really I'm just talking about things I care about. So I have it a lot of the time. What I have learned to do because I know about it is that I know I have this because I'm challenging myself, because I'm learning, and because I'm good at what I do, which my brain doesn't always accept, but I do know that that's the truth. It's helped me so much to figure out that this was a thing. But even though I know it's a thing, it still hits me once in a while. And then one of the reasons I see it a lot is I talk about the things we don't talk about. I talk about courage, I talk about stress and depression. At the moment, I'm doing a lot of talks about why we need more managers in the tech. And I'm not a manager. I have been for 2 years, but it still sometimes feels like I don't know what I'm talking about. When I did my keynote in South Africa in 2016, I was talking about having the courage to work agile. And I did my talk, and afterwards, people came up to talk to me. And this woman came to me and she said, thank you so much. I realized that when a famous, world famous keynote speaker like you can feel doubt, maybe it's okay that I do. And my first reaction was, what do you mean, world known female keynote speaker? I was like, who are you talking to? And then I'm kind of like, I'm in a, not only in a different country, I'm in a different continent because people asked me to be there to talk about something. Okay, I am an international keynote speaker. But somehow that is not the image I have in my head. In my head, I'm Gitte, who talks about things I care about because it helped me and sometimes it can help other people. So imposter syndrome is something you are probably going to encounter. And the better you get at this, the more you might encounter it actually. Because you will start out by going like, oh, this is cool, I know this. And then the more you know, the more you will realize that you don't know. So tech is gigantic. There are so many things in tech. When I started out working with Agile, for instance, I thought I knew everything about Agile. But the more I realize and the more I learn about things, the more I know I don't know. I know something about psychology, I know something about collaboration, I know something about processes, but there are things that I don't know about. And it will continue that way. The more that you learn, the more you'll see that there are so many aspects. And that is okay. You don't have to know everything. You are not alone if you have the imposter syndrome. Um, First man on the moon had the imposter syndrome. Michelle Obama had imposter syndrome. There are authors, there are actors. I saw an interview with Liam Neeson when he was turning 60, where he's like, one day people are going to find out that I'm not actually an action hero, but he still does action movies. Uh, so even people who are amazing at what they do, oh, I spelled Serena Williams wrong. Sorry. Even people who are this amazing still doubt themselves. So it's not about if you're good at something, it is about um, being afraid of being fraud. Moving on to courage. As you have seen of two of my pictures now, I have a tattoo that says be brave, which is because courage is something that is super important to me. So when I started talking about this, I looked it up in the dictionary. And it says something like quality of mind that enables a person to face difficulty, danger, pain without fear. And then the obsolete is the heart as sort of emotions, source of emotion. But really, I think this is totally wrong because being brave doesn't mean you remove your fear. It means that you do the things that are important to you, even if you are afraid. For me, it also means that I don't have to do everything I'm afraid of. I only do the stuff that is important to me. We very often look at courage as, someone going into war or someone jumping out of an airplane. And that is also one kind of courage. It is some of the courage I would never do. Like I would never jump out of an airplane unless, it was falling down and I would die if I stayed in it. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's bad enough that I'm up in the air in something that I hope will fly. So my definition is it is doing what is necessary even when you are afraid. And funny enough, I am afraid of needles, but I still have several tattoos because my tattoos give me power. Being brave reminds me to have the courage to be who I am and not what my family and society wants me to be. The big tattoo I have on my arm symbolizes Freya, who is a goddess in Nordic mythology. And I don't believe in Nordic mythology, but I like the symbolism of having a very strong woman in a man's world. And the gods of the Viking ages is a man's world, but she was still powerful. So my tattoos help me. So they are super important to me. So I have had my tattoos, even though I'm afraid of it. It is about showing your heart. So courage originates from the Latin, which I can't pronounce, which means heart. So I know it is called cœur in French. It is about showing your heart. So when you went into war, you would show your heart by having the colors of your flag, for instance, in the old days. So it's about showing your heart, showing what you really believe in. And that also means that you will be vulnerable. And standing up for what you believe in, whether that is something in politics or it's a way of doing development, is something that is a bit scary because you are putting your heart out there and saying, this is what I believe in. When you put your heart out there, you can get hurt. And we are afraid for a reason. Our brain is helping us. Sometimes it's not, well, at least it's trying to help us because sometimes it's not helping us. But like I said before, like jumping out of an airplane, there's a reason our brain goes like, haha, are you sure this is a good idea? So with things we are afraid of, our brain is trying to protect us. But there are things that are so important that we will still take that chance. So I encourage you, when the more you get into this, I hope the more you will love it, as I did. The more important it gets to you. Overstep that fear. Go into the things that matter to you, and then show the things that you believe in. Another thing that takes a lot of courage, surprisingly, is to ask for help. Ask for help when you need it. Sometimes it's also good to ask for help before you need it. But asking for help is something that can take a bit of courage because we like to take care of ourselves. Another thing that is super difficult is to receive help. I struggle a lot with that because I've always taken care of myself. So if somebody comes and says, like in the airport, should I carry your suitcase? One of my friends did that, and I was like, okay, why? I can carry my suitcase. But receiving help is something that takes courage. And in a connection with this, where you're going to learn a lot, you should take all the help you could get. It can sometimes be hard to offer help as well because there is something in this. When I offer help, does that mean I believe the other person can't do it by themselves? But that is not what help is about. Help is about saying, hey, I have a privilege in some way. It could be that I learn a programming language, that I travel, that I know something about the domain we're going to work in. Or it could just be that, I have the headspace today to help someone. By reaching out and offering help, you are enabling each other to grow as well, because together we can go so much further. And you have the advantage of being a group of people that want the same things. So by asking and offering help, you can get so much further, not longer, further than you will otherwise. Sorry. I would like to also address being kind. Um, some people say that we should always be nice. And while nice is good in some ways, it's comfortable, it is not good enough. Because if we are just nice, we might not tell someone if they are making a mistake. And one of the things you need to learn, for instance, when you start looking at each other's code or you are helping each other, is to give feedback and also give negative feedback, telling people when something is wrong. Um, Not telling them that they are wrong because a person is always okay. It is their code, is the whatever it is that it might be wrong. So telling them that in a good way, in a kind way, is about making a favor to them, showing them that something is wrong. Interesting enough, it's also part of helping people feel safe because I know that if I mess up, if I step on some toes, somebody is actually going to tell me. So being kind is part of what helps this thing be. And here comes my children's story. I don't know if it how far Pippi Longstocking spread. She is from Sweden. The books are, I think, almost 80 years old now. And I'm not that old, even though I'm way older than you. When I was a kid, I used to read a lot of Pippi Longstocking because she lived on her own because her father was sailing the seven seas. So she lived with her horse and she dressed how she wanted. She was so strong that she could lift her horse. She had a magic tree where she could pull out gold coins and she would buy candy for all the kids in town and stuff. Very interesting. But there are a lot of philosophy in that as well. And one of the things is that if you are very strong, you have to be very nice. So part of that is if there's something be the one that offers that help, be the one that is nice. If you have a privilege in some form, sadly, still also in Sweden, it is a privilege to be white. So I have a privilege in that way, which means I am strong in that way. I'm also strong because I'm not afraid to speak in front of people. And because I am that, I believe I have to be very nice. Actually, I want to be very nice. So I want to help other people as well. And I treat people with kindness as much as I can. The hardest part is, of course, to be kind to yourself. We tend to judge ourselves so hard. When we fail, we get more angry at ourselves than we do at other people when they fail. So practice being kind to yourself, especially in a learning environment, because you are here to learn. And learning means that sometimes there's stuff that you can't just pick up and do. You might need to do it 5 times before you know how to do it. And that's why you are in the place you're in right now. So summing it up a bit, I know I talked about a lot of different things. It is very much about knowing that the unknown can be scary, but that is okay. You are not alone on this journey. You have people to help you. You have each other in this cohort. You have the people doing the trainings. You have people. You can also reach out to people outside. Reach out to people like me. Find videos on YouTube you can learn from. There's so many places where you can get help. And quoting PP again, PP Longstocking, she says, I have never tried this before, so I think I should definitely be able to do that. And that's an attitude I try to go in with. Sometimes I fail terribly, especially if it's anything physical, like sport. No, I'm a brain person. But I still try to go in with it with this attitude and saying, okay, I've never tried it. So maybe I should be able to do it. Because you are unique. You have good sides, you have bad sides, but you are unique. You are the only person in the world that is you. And that uniqueness is special, and that uniqueness is valuable. So be that uniqueness, figure out what are your advantages. Also figure out what are your dark sides, because then you can avoid doing them, or you can at least kind of dampen the consequences of your darkness. So now it's time for question. I will send this to you. There are links, there is my contact information. And you're always welcome to contact me if you don't want to ask questions here.
Fantastic. Uh, that was a beautiful presentation, Gitte. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Um, can we start having a conversation? It was very hard to get Gitte to make time for us. You will never believe that we booked this session a month ahead. That's how busy she is. So if there's anyone who has a question for Gitte, please let's have a conversation. But speaking for myself, I always learn a lot whenever I have a conversation with you, Gitte, and I think I do have questions of my own,
Mhm.
but let's rather keep them for later. For
Yeah.
now, let me focus on the students. Alshan, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, is asking how can we permanently overcome imposter syndrome?
Most people can't. Um, I think some people are able to overcome the imposter syndrome. I have not been able to. Um, no matter how many times and how much I've worked with myself, I will still once in a while go like, oh God, I am being asked to do something. 3 weeks ago, I spoke at a conference with 6 invited speakers, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Why am I with these 5 famous speakers and then there's me? Even though my logic knows that I am asked to come because I'm a good speaker and have something valuable to contribute. But what we can do when we have the imposter syndrome is we can use it to our advantage. We can start saying, okay, I feel this way because I'm challenging myself. I feel this way because I'm learning, I'm growing. We can also use it, which is super difficult, to know that we are smart, because only smart people have the imposter syndrome. So when I do my talk, I have a slide that says, I'm not smart enough for the imposter syndrome, because that is how you're feeling. But it's okay to not know everything. It's good to know the things that you do know, but you can also, like one of the things that helped me push it a little bit away is if people tell me something nice about when I do a talk, or when I'm working with them, or even like my family and my bonus kids. So I don't have kids of my own, but my friends' kids adopt me. I take these things and I write them down. And then I look at them and going like, okay, I know I doubt myself, but there are people who, because of my talk on stress and depression, went to see a doctor. So I make a difference. So every time you get these things, write them down. And then know that you only have this because you are learning and growing. And to me, that is essential. We need to learn and grow until the day we die. Otherwise, we're just going to be boring and stale and not experience the world.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sharon. I wanted to get to mine before I can get to Sisso's question.
Mhm.
So often, more often than not, I come across or I have conversations with students who come to say to me and say, you know what, Jay, I've been at Within Code for 2 months. I've been at Within Code for 3 months or 4 months or whatever amount of time they've been, but I can't seem to be able to quantify the amount of learning that I've made. And I'd like you to correct me or even disagree with me or agree with me on this one when I say that um, coding in itself is a language. Or there's many languages in coding, but then the one that we teach them the fundamentals in is a language on its own. It's like learning French
Yeah.
or learning um, uh, whatever other language there is, and you are now beating yourself because you are not speaking French as well as a French person would, you know.
Yeah.
So how then can students stop beating themselves up? I feel like most of them have this problem where they are beating themselves up. By this time I should have been, by this time I should be able to do this by myself, but yet I'm still going out there asking for help and all of that. What do you say to conversations like that?
So asking for help is actually a sign of being mature. And one of my, so because I've been in this game for 1,000 years, I feel like sometimes one of my friends is Ron Jeffries, who was part of writing the Agile Manifesto. And he is now 84 and he is still learning how to code, as he says. So he invented things like extreme programming. He coded before I was born. So programming and being a developer, it's something that will always evolve. Also, our brain doesn't remember everything. And one thing is that you know your own language because you've known this since you were born, hopefully. But like they say, it is a new language, but it is also a different way of thinking. It is not just a new language, it's almost a different culture. Like if you look at languages, for instance, some languages have genders. So like in French, you have the male, the female, and the neutral. In Danish, we don't have gender on any of our things. So that is two very different concepts. So it's not just the words in the language, it's different concepts. So what you are learning now is very much that you are learning to learn. Um, and that is super important because the things you learn now in 20 years will not be the things you're working with. And working together, working in teams, helping each other learn, helping to try things out, that is the important thing. And failing. Because when I was a manager, I said to my people, I expect you to fail. Because if you are not failing, you are either not being challenged enough, and we need to fix that, or you are not safe enough, and we need to fix that. So failing is a sign of growing. So there are very few things you can be perfect in. Even people, like I said, with Ron Jeffries, he coded for more than, I'm 53 now. He coded for, I think, 65 years now as a professional, and he's still learning. Um,
Okay. So I think the main highlight from the response you gave now, for me at least, I'll get to the questions in the text box just now. Um, so the biggest thing that I would like for the students to take from what you just said is that they're here to learn to learn. You are
yeah,
here to learn to learn. You are not here to learn. Yes, you're learning code, but then the main thing that you're here for is learning to learn.
Yeah.
So Siso is asking, how can leaders or mentors help create an environment where people feel safe to acknowledge their imposter syndrome without fear of judgment?
So one of the most important thing a leader can do in this case is to show that they make mistakes themselves. So one of the links that is in the slides that I'm going to send is for a TED Talk by Amy Edmondson. And she says there are three things a leader can do. One is to frame work as learning. Oh, I hate when it does that, but I'm not. Frame things like learning, because learning means that we don't know. So one of the things you can do as a leader, as a trainer, as a manager is you can talk about that. The second thing is to be curious. So if people are coming up with a different opinion, instead of going like, no, that's wrong, even if it might actually technically be wrong, be curious about it, saying, oh, that's super interesting. Let's talk about this, especially when it comes to code. So when you are working with people and code, both things are complex. So there is not one single right solution. So one of the things that you will learn when you get out into the industry is you might be able to solve this problem, but the question is, how do we want to solve it? And is it important that this application we are working on, that it is super fast? It might be important for that. If we are doing stock exchange, it needs to be super fast. If we are working on medical software, it needs to be very, very secure and safe. So there are different ways of solving different things. So having that curiosity and asking about things is important. And then the last one is about showing fallibility. So showing that you make mistakes, you will as well. So when I work with teams, for instance, one of the things that I encourage the senior and experienced developers to do is to ask for help and is to show when they make mistakes. Because that is part of showing that we're all human, we all make mistakes. If you look at your computer in front of you, there's a backspace. That is because we make mistakes, otherwise we wouldn't have backspace. And that is so important that leaders encourage people to try things out, to make mistakes, but also show that they themselves are human.
Fantastic. And then Alshan asked again, are there any specific people, or I think that one you did answer
Yeah, I
about
wrote Kevlin
Kevin
Henney.
and
I
then
love Kevlin Henney. There's also Linda Rising. So Kevlin talks very much about code. My favorite talks is something like Seven Deadly Sins of a Programmer or The Errors of Our Ways, where he talks about some of the gigantic errors that happen in IT that caused a lot of damage. He's now actually known for collecting bugs and errors. So every time people go like in an airport and there's a screen that shows something wrong, they'll send him a picture. Linda Rising is another person. She is 30 years older than me, and she's such an inspiration about how our brain works, how we collaborate, how we can support each other. I'll just write her name as well. So those are some of my role models um, that I look to and that I talk to and watch their talks whenever I can do this.
beautiful. And then there was Tabelo who asked, the biggest hurdle in coding is confidence. How can we use the newfound, albeit little confidence to tackle even more complex coding challenges?
I think that you are just putting your point on the right thing. So what you do is you find confidence in this area, and then you take a breath and go, "Whew," and then you take the next step into more complex, and then you stop and you take a breath so that you have that confidence, and then you do it again, and then sometimes you'll take too far and you go like fuck, and then you go back and you go back to where you have the confidence, work a little bit with this, tell yourself, I've learned this, I didn't know it a while ago, I can learn more, and then you build on that confidence. The same thing with courage. You find a little bit of courage, you move on. Um, so the fact that you have a little bit of confidence is a stepping stone. And also know again that failing is an option and it will happen. So it is okay to move into an area where you don't have confidence. One of the things that can
100%.
help us is to test things, have automatic testing, for instance. It's something that can help us because then our fails, when we fail, it doesn't hurt as much as if we didn't have a test.
100%. I fully agree with you there. And then Katlego is asking, how do you stay current with industry trends and developments in agile coaching?
Um, well, some of the things I just invent. Um, but what I do is I go to conferences or I watch videos about it. Uh, I look into what is happening, but I also see, like in coaching, for instance, a lot of it is a basic core of listening to people, caring about people, and asking them challenging questions. And that doesn't change. But I do look into the industry, for instance. One of the things I've been looking into at the moment is a little bit about AI because it's everywhere, also in places it shouldn't be. It's like all companies go like, "Ooh, we should have AI." And if you ask them why, they'll be like, "Ooh, we should have AI." AI can help us, but it's like shoved in our face. So I look a little bit into that, and what I do is, I was just talking to Kevlin Henny about this because I'm not a coder. I coded 25 years ago, so I know all the concepts, but I don't code. So I was talking to him about it, and he reads the research about the code that AI is doing at the moment. Um, so that's what I try to do. I try to see what's going on. Um, but the IT industry is also so big, so you need to kind of narrow down. If you're super interested in one specific programming language, there are conferences that have videos online if you're not able to attend one. If you are interested in testing, there are conferences. If you're interested in Agile, there are conferences. So there's a lot of options. There's the Agile Alliance who has online talks. I'm going to do one in April about what would an engineering department look like if we had great managers, for instance. And they have both like people talks, like the management one, and they have technical talks. Um,
Nice. I please do remind me on the date on that one. I want to attend. Please do remind me of the
yeah,
date. Um, there was a question also for uh, Israel, who's asking, when do you know to take a step back when learning a new concept and struggling to comprehend?
personally, I'm not very good at it. What I do is I often go a little bit too far, and then I realize that this is super, super frustrating. And then sometimes I am able to take a step back myself, but I have a friend who helps me. So if I feel like, okay, I need to step back, but I also feel like I have to do all these things, I call him and I say, I need your help. Please give me permission to step back. And it's not logical because he's a friend. He has no power over me. But having another person saying, you know what, it's okay to step back. That's good. So if you feel like this is just super, super frustrating, that could be a moment. And one of the things that our brain is actually good at is digesting things when we are not there. So when I do workshops, for instance, where we have to make big decisions, I do a lot of the work before lunch where we look at things, and then after lunch, we make the decisions. Because then you step away from it, you have your lunch, maybe if you are able to, you can take a walk, and then your brain kind of puts it in a place where it does stuff that we actually don't know a lot about. And it's the same like if you sometimes you'll stand in the shower and you'll go like, oh, that is interesting. That's the solution to what I was talking about yesterday. So knowing it is hard because you do need to push yourself in where it hurts a little bit. So asking your friends to help, taking a lot of breaks, drinking a lot of, make sure you drink water. Water helps our brain learn. Um, and then sometimes you'll take a step too far and then you will just have to rest a little bit longer. So I can't like put one answer on it. Sorry.
That's totally fine. And then there's one, I think it takes us back to the main purpose of this conversation today. Wabi's asking if there's anything more to add about psychological safety, and they think it's an important and interesting topic.
I think it is super important. Psychological safety is essential for us. And it is something, sadly, that a lot of companies do not look enough into because it's just a people thing. But feeling safe at work is what allows us to be super creative, try things out, using all of our brain power. Because if we need to like use half our brain power being nervous, that is brain power we do not use at our work, we do not use at being human. So psychological safety is interesting, and you can go more and more into details. If you look at my name on YouTube, there are several talks about psychological safety. Like there's one about psychological safety and courage are two sides of the same coin. There is, do we really need it? So there are a lot of talks between a half hour and 1 hour on YouTube. And I also recommend seeing some of the short talks and reading some of the stuff by Amy Edmondson if you have time for it. And you are always welcome to ask questions for me.
So, I think there isn't any other question in the chat right now. So maybe because we are in the last 5 minutes of the talk, do you have any closing statements or um, anything you'd like to say in closing the chat for today?
You are on a journey that you started recently. Don't just look at the end goal. Enjoy the journey. Enjoy that you are now learning super interesting things. Enjoy that you have people that you are learning with. And enjoy that you are in a surrounding where it's safe to fail and where you can learn how to fail properly, so to say. And I know you'll all be great because you are. You will doubt yourself. Most people in the world do. There are some people who should doubt themselves, but that's a different story. Um, Take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. But know that what you do is good enough.
Couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. But then from the students, is there anything else you'd like to say or ask Gitte before we deplete our most precious hour with her? Guys, we are in the presence of um, we're in the presence of a very scarce resource. So we need to make sure that we make use of the time we have with Jira. So Pumla is saying, not related to coding, but as a speaker, how do you sharpen the connection of mind and mouth?
Ooh,
Oof,
interesting.
yeah,
Practice. Practice, practice, practice. And then sometimes I fail. Like I remember being in England, no, in the US, where you're not supposed to curse. And I said something like, if you just want to make things faster, that's not good. So if you have a pile of shit, you're just going to make a lot of piles of shit. And so I do sometimes miss that. But one of the things I've tried to do and practice is to put in a split second between what I think and what I say. And that is super hard. It's taken me more than 10 years. But what I've do is like trying to not say everything. I am very honest, I'm very authentic. I will tell you most things. But having that little bit of practice, and then if you fail, or when you fail, like I did, take the step back and going like, okay, what could I have done differently? How could I have said this differently? Um, and practice. And I think one of the reasons people like me as a speaker is because I fail. Because I am not this unapproachable, perfect speaker. Um, but practice. And if you struggle to formulate things right, look at people that you admire, see how they do things, and then try things out. If you want to, for instance, be a speaker, you can try out just with one friend, and then you can try out with your cohort, or, taking small steps and trying that out.
Fantastic. Katla says, thank you for your time. We appreciate your insight. And with that, I think Katla has stolen my words as well,
Thank
because I
you.
wanted to thank you so much for making time for us once again.
You're welcome.
And yes, please always keep your door open for us.
Yeah,
And
I
let's
will.
continue that conversation about having these constant talks with us.
Yeah,
And to the student body at large, I will be sending out a survey, and I feel like it will also be valuable data for you as well, Gitte, so that we can find out if the satisfaction levels from
yeah,
the conversation, yeah, it would be something that you could find useful as well.
yeah. And if you
Um,
find anything where you think I could improve, please tell me as well. That's how I
A
learn.
hundred, 100%, yes. So please fill out that survey that I'll be sending out just now. But just to say, Jiren, thank you so much for making your time. I always learn a lot from your chats, and maybe I feel like sometimes I make excuses by asking if you can talk to the students, but in fact, I'll be asking for you to speak to me. But then, yeah, thank you so much for always making time for us. And to the students, thank you for making time to join the call. We really hope that you have learned something today, and then you will not be struggling with that imposter syndrome, and
Too
that you
much.
will be, as Jire said, be kind to yourself. Cheers. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Jire, please stay.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.